life, as I knew it, changed the day I met Daniel. It was a whirlwind, an unexpected storm of emotions that swept me off my feet. I, Emily, had always considered myself level-headed, especially when it came to matters of the heart. But Daniel, with his easy smile and a heart as vast as the ocean, made all my reservations vanish like mist under the morning sun. I remember walking into that quaint little coffee shop downtown, the one with the mismatched chairs and the strong aroma of freshly brewed coffee. It was a Tuesday, mundane in every aspect, until my eyes found him. He was sitting by the window, lost in a book, with the late afternoon sun casting a golden halo around him. Our eyes met, and in that split second, something shifted within me. "Is this seat taken?" I asked, gesturing to the chair opposite him. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. He looked up, his gaze piercing yet warm, and shook his head. "Not at all. Please, join me." That was the beginning of everything. We talked for hours, about everything and nothing. Daniel was an enigma, a blend of old-world charm and modern sensibility. He was passionate about his work in environmental law, fighting tirelessly for the underdog, and his eyes sparkled whenever he talked about his dreams of making the world a better place. Sophia came into the picture much later, but in those early days, it was just Daniel and me against the world. We moved from friends to something more with the kind of ease that scared me. I had never fallen so hard, so fast. I never believed in love at first sight, Daniel confessed one evening as we walked along the riverbank, the city lights reflecting off the water like a myriad of fallen stars. I laughed, my hand finding his. Neither did I. Yet, here we are. Here we are, he echoed, pulling me closer. His voice was a whisper against my hair. "I can't imagine my life without you in it." Those words, so simple yet profound, sealed my fate. I fell for him, completely and irrevocably. Our whirlwind romance was the kind poets wrote about, the kind that, in the back of my mind, I feared was too good to last. But as all whirlwinds do, ours settled. We found comfort in the routine of domestic life, our love a steady flame rather than a blazing inferno. Sophia entered our lives around this time, her flair for the dramatic a stark contrast to our quiet existence. But little did I know, the real storm was yet to come. As the novelty of our whirlwind romance gave way to the rhythms of everyday life, Daniel and I found solace in the predictable. We settled into our roles seamlessly, like actors in a well-rehearsed play. I continued to climb the ladder in finance, my days a blur of numbers and negotiations. Daniel, with his unyielding passion for environmental advocacy, found new battles to fight, his determination as infectious as ever. It was during this comfortable lull that Sophia became a permanent fixture in our lives, her presence a constant reminder of the world beyond our bubble. Sophia, with her larger-than-life persona and a laugh that filled the room, brought an energy that was both exhilarating and exhausting. She worked in finance too, but where I saw numbers as a puzzle to be solved, she saw them as a game to be played. Our professional worlds overlapped, but our philosophies could not have been more different. One evening, as the three of us sat around the dining table, a sea of takeout containers between us, the conversation took an unexpected turn. "Daniel, you're too idealistic," Sophia said, her tone teasing, but with an edge. "Saving the world is a noble cause, but at what cost? You need financial backing to make a real impact." Daniel's eyes met mine, a silent question lingering in their depths. I knew he was wondering if I shared Sophia's viewpoint. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "Sophia, there's more to life than just money," I said, hoping to bridge the gap between their contrasting views. "What Daniel is doing is important. He's fighting for the future, our future." Sophia laughed, a sound that seemed to fill the room. "Emily, my dear, you're as idealistic as he is. But, let's not forget, it's the financial world that keeps everything moving. Without it, dreams remain just that, dreams." The conversation shifted soon after, but the tension lingered, a precursor to the storm brewing on the horizon. It wasn't long before Daniel's parents, with their old-world expectations and traditional values, moved in with us. The shift in our home was immediate and palpable. Privacy became a luxury, and the once peaceful atmosphere was now charged with an undercurrent of tension. Daniel's parents, steeped in their ways, viewed me as an outsider, a fact they did not bother to hide. Their presence strained our relationship, turning minor disagreements into full-blown arguments. One particularly tense evening, as we all sat around the dinner table, Daniel's father made a comment that would forever change the course of our lives. "This house is for family only. Outsiders should leave," he declared, his voice cold and unwavering. To my utter shock, Daniel echoed his father's sentiments. "He's right, Sophia. We have our ways." The room fell silent, the weight of his words crashing down on me like a tidal wave. I looked at Daniel, searching for any sign of the man I fell in love with, but found none. In that moment, I realized that the shift had been happening all along, slowly eroding the foundation of our relationship. "Okay," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "If that's how you feel." That night, as I packed my bags, my heart was heavy, but my resolve was strong. I knew I had to leave, to find my way back to myself. The financial ties that bound me to Daniel and his family were severed with a few clicks of a button, a poetic end to a chapter that had once promised so much more. As I stepped out into the cool night air, my future uncertain but my spirit unbroken, I realized that this was not the end of my story, but the beginning of a new chapter. The morning after I left, the world seemed unusually quiet, as if holding its breath. I sat in a small, sunlit cafe, a stark contrast to the turmoil within me. My hands wrapped around a cup of coffee, its warmth a small comfort against the chill of uncertainty. I had left behind not just a home, but a life intertwined with Daniel's and, by extension, his family's. The reality of my decision weighed heavily on me, but beneath that weight was a burgeoning sense of liberation. I had expected anger, perhaps even a desperate plea for me to return, but the silence from Daniel was deafening. It wasn't until late afternoon that my phone finally broke the silence, vibrating with an urgency that mirrored the chaos I had unleashed. "Emily, what have you done?" Daniel's voice was frantic, a cocktail of confusion and disbelief. I took a deep breath, steadying my nerves. "I did what you asked. I left." "But why the accounts, Emily?" "My parents, they're panicking. Everything's frozen." "What happened?" His question hung between us, a testament to the distance that had grown. It was not just physical but emotional, a chasm widened by unspoken truths and unacknowledged grievances. "Daniel, your father was clear. I was an outsider, remember? I managed those accounts, your parents' finances, on the understanding that I was family. But last night, that notion was quite thoroughly dispelled." Silence followed, heavy and laden with realization. I could almost hear the gears turning in Daniel's head, the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. "Emily, please. This isn't you. You're not vindictive. We can fix this," he pleaded, his voice softening. "Fix this?" "Daniel, this isn't about revenge. It's about respect, about partnership. You chose your side, and I chose mine. It's time both of us lived with those choices." I ended the call, the finality of the moment settling over me like a cloak. The fallout from my departure was more than just a financial crisis for Daniel and his family. It was a lesson in the consequences of our actions, a mirror reflecting the cost of taking love and loyalty for granted. In the days that followed, I watched from a distance as Daniel struggled to untangle the mess. I heard through mutual friends that his parents were mortified, their social standing compromised by the sudden financial upheaval. Daniel, for his part, was humbled by the experience, his pride taking a back seat to the harsh reality of his situation. It wasn't long before he reached out again, this time not with panic but with a quiet resignation. "Emily, I'm sorry. Truly. I see now what I couldn't then. You were more family than anyone, and I was a fool." His apology, sincere and unadorned, was a balm to the wounds of betrayal. Yet, as much as I wanted to, I couldn't simply step back into the role I had vacated. Too much had changed, not just between Daniel and me, but within myself. Thank you, Daniel. Your apology means more than you know. But I can't come back. Not now, maybe not ever. I hope you understand. I do, he said, and I believed him. The fallout from that fateful dinner had set us both on new paths that, while separate, were shaped by the lessons learned from our shared past. As I hung up the phone, I realized that the fallout wasn't just about the end of a relationship, it was about the beginning of something new, a chance to rebuild and rediscover, not just for me, but for Daniel as well. In the weeks that followed, the rhythm of my new life began to take shape. I immersed myself in work, taking on new challenges that demanded all my focus. Yet, in the quiet moments, my thoughts would drift back to Daniel, to the life we had shared, and to the abruptness with which it had all come apart. It was during one of these reflective moments, sitting in the tranquility of a park bathed in the golden hues of the setting sun, that the realization began to dawn on me. It wasn't merely the fallout from our financial entanglement or the sharp words that had been exchanged. It was the understanding that, for so long, I had allowed my identity to be intertwined with Daniel's, with his family's expectations, and with a role that I had unconsciously accepted. I had been an integral part of a narrative that wasn't entirely mine, playing a part without questioning whether it was the role I truly wanted. As I watched families and couples around me, each absorbed in their own worlds, a conversation I had overheard earlier that day came to mind. Two friends were discussing the end of a relationship, and one said something that struck a chord within me. Sometimes, love isn't about holding on. It's about letting go and finding the strength to start anew. The words echoed in my mind, mingling with my own tumultuous thoughts. It was then that an elderly woman, who had been sitting on a nearby bench feeding the birds, turned to me and said, "You look like you're carrying the weight of the world, dear. Want to talk about it?" Her voice, gentle and laced with years of wisdom, was unexpectedly comforting. I found myself opening up to her, sharing the broad strokes of my story, the love lost, and the lessons learned. "You've been given a rare gift," she said after I finished, her eyes reflecting a mix of empathy and resolve. "The gift of a second chance. It's terrifying, but it's also a chance to rediscover who you are, beyond anyone's expectations." Her words, simple yet profound, helped the realization to fully take root within me. I had been focusing on what I had lost, on the pain of betrayal and the upheaval that followed. But what if this was not just an ending, but also a beginning? "Thank you," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I think I've been looking at this all wrong. It's not just about moving on from Daniel, but moving towards something else, something that's truly mine." The woman smiled, a gesture that seemed to encompass understanding, encouragement, and a shared sense of human resilience. "Exactly, dear. It's your story now. Make it one worth telling." As I left the park that day, the weight I had been carrying felt lighter. The path ahead was still uncertain, and the wounds were far from healed, but the realization had brought with it a newfound sense of clarity. It was time to step out of the shadow of my past and into the light of a future that was mine to shape. In the days that followed, I began to make deliberate choices about how I wanted to live my life, about the values I wanted to uphold, and the dreams I wished to pursue. The realization that I was no longer bound by a narrative that wasn't mine was both liberating and daunting. But I was ready to embrace it, ready to discover who Emily was when she wasn't someone's partner or adversary. The journey was just beginning, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of excitement about the unknown. The realization had set me free, and I was eager to see where this newfound freedom would lead. The concept of a new beginning is both exhilarating and daunting. For me, it meant leaving behind the familiar, even if it was fraught with discord, and stepping into the unknown with nothing but a belief in myself and the desire for a life that reflected who I truly was. This chapter of my life began with the decision to move to a new city, a place where the remnants of my past life with Daniel wouldn't shadow every street corner and coffee shop. It was a fresh canvas, an opportunity to redefine myself on my own terms. My first day in the new city dawned bright and clear, a symbolic start to my new beginning. As I unpacked boxes in my new apartment, a space I had chosen for its light and the promise of a view that I could lose myself in, my phone rang. It was Sophia, my best friend and confidant through the tumultuous end of my marriage. Emily. How's the first day in your new kingdom? Sophia's voice was like a warm hug, full of excitement and support. It's overwhelming, but in a good way. It feels right, Sophia. Like I'm finally where I'm supposed to be, I replied, looking around at the half-unpacked boxes that surrounded me. That's because you are. Just remember, Em, this is your chance to rediscover the passions you put on hold. You're not just starting over, you're starting better, she encouraged, her words bolstering my resolve. Our conversation was a reminder of the support system I had, a network of friends who believed in me even when I struggled to believe in myself. Sophia's words stayed with me as I ventured out to explore my new neighborhood. The city was alive with possibilities, each street and alley whispering secrets and stories I was eager to discover. A few days later, as I sat in a local cafe that quickly became my go-to spot for morning coffee, I struck up a conversation with the person next to me. He was an artist, his sketchbook filled with the vibrant life of the city as seen through his eyes. We talked about creativity, about the courage it takes to follow one's passion, and about the city that we both were learning to call home. It's not easy, starting over. But there's something beautiful about it, too. You get to decide who you want to be, without anyone else's expectations weighing you down, he said, his pencil pausing over the page. You're right. I'm finding pieces of myself I had forgotten, rediscovering what it means to be me. It's scary, but it's also incredibly freeing, I admitted, feeling a kinship with this stranger who understood the journey I was on. That conversation in the cafe was a turning point, a moment that solidified my resolve to embrace this new beginning with open arms. It wasn't just about moving to a new city or escaping the shadows of my past. It was about giving myself permission to dream again, to explore the facets of my identity that I had neglected. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself more settled, more at peace than I had been in years. I took up painting, something I had always wanted to try but never had the courage to pursue. I explored my new city with the curiosity of a traveler, each day offering new sights, sounds, and experiences. I met people who, like me, were on their own journeys of discovery and growth. One evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of gold and pink, I realized how far I had come. The new beginning I had embarked on was no longer just about geographical change or escaping a painful past. It was about growth, about learning to live authentically and passionately. It was about building a life that was not defined by others, but crafted by my own desires and dreams. The journey was far from over, but for the first time I felt truly excited about the path ahead. The new beginning was not just a chapter in my life, it was the start of a whole new story, one where I was the author, and the possibilities were endless. Months had woven themselves into the fabric of my new life, each thread a testament to the journey I had embarked upon, a journey of rediscovery, resilience, and renewal. It was during one of those serene evenings, as I sat in my now familiar apartment surrounded by canvases that bore witness to my evolving passion for painting, that the full magnitude of my transformation struck me. The room was bathed in the soft glow of sunset, casting shadows that danced along with my thoughts. My phone buzzed, slicing through the silence. It was a message from Daniel, the first in what felt like a lifetime. His words were tentative, a request to meet and talk about everything that had happened. I stared at the screen, emotions swirling within me, a tempest of the past and present colliding. I took a deep breath and decided to respond later. For now, I needed this moment of reflection, to acknowledge the path I had traveled and the person I had become. It was then that there was a soft knock on my door. I opened it to find my neighbor, Mia, standing there with a smile and a homemade pie in her hands. "Thought you might enjoy this. It's my grandma's recipe," she said, her gesture a reminder of the simple, beautiful connections that had begun to weave the tapestry of my new life. "Thank you, Mia. That's so thoughtful of you. Would you like to come in for a cup of tea?" I offered, grateful for her kindness. As we sat down, the conversation flowed naturally, from trivial day-to-day matters to deeper reflections on life's unpredictable journey. Mia shared her own story of starting anew, of the courage it took to leave behind what was familiar to pursue what felt right. It's never easy, is it? But there's something incredibly rewarding about building a life that feels authentically yours, Mia mused, her words echoing my own thoughts. You're right. It's been a journey of highs and lows, but looking back, I wouldn't change a thing. It's led me to this moment, to a life that feels more me than ever before, I shared, feeling a sense of camaraderie in our shared experiences. Our conversation lingered on the topic of reflection, of looking back not in regret but with an appreciation for the growth that comes from life's challenges. Mia's presence, her story, was a reminder of the beauty in shared human experiences, in the resilience that binds us. After Mia left, I found myself drawn to the canvas, inspired to capture the essence of reflection, not just as a mirror to our past, but as a gateway to our inner growth. As my brush moved across the canvas, I contemplated the meeting with Daniel. It was an opportunity for closure, a final chapter in the story of us that needed to be written. The next day, sitting across from Daniel in a quiet cafe, the weight of our shared history hung between us. Yet, I felt a calm resolve, a strength forged through the trials of starting anew. Emily, I've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of reflecting. I know I can't change the past, but I'm truly sorry for everything, Daniel said, his voice carrying the weight of genuine remorse. Thank you, Daniel. That means a lot to hear. I've been reflecting too, and while it was painful, it led me to where I am today, to a place of growth and self-discovery. I found peace, and I hope you can too, I replied, my words not just a farewell to our past, but an acknowledgement of my own journey. As we parted ways, it was with a mutual understanding that while our paths had diverged, the experiences we shared were integral to the people we had become. Reflection, I realized, was not just about looking back, but about acknowledging the lessons learned and the strength gained along the way. That evening, as I added the finishing touches to my painting, I understood that this chapter of reflection was not an end but a bridge to the future. A future I was ready to embrace, with all its unknowns and possibilities, armed with the knowledge that the most profound journeys are those that take us within. In the reflection, I had not only found closure, but had also discovered a deeper, truer version of myself. It was a journey that had taken me through the depths of heartache to the heights of personal triumph. And as I looked forward, I knew that the reflection would always be there, a reminder of where I had been and the endless potential of where